Hi, I'm Caroline Woolley of Meaden and Moore Forensic Accountants. I head up the London office. You'll have to excuse me, I've got a bit of a cold today. Um, this is a video interview series called Business Interruption and Other Stories. And this is more an other stories one because I'm interviewing today Miranda, who is one of the founders of Empathy Lab. Now, I met Miranda on a train many years ago, and it's one of those chance but lovely meetings. I think if you bother to listen, most people have got a good story to tell, and Miranda's is fabulous. I volunteer with Empathy Lab, financial strategist, just helping them out from a budgeting and financial point of view. There's many volunteers. So Miranda's just joining now, so I'm going to admit her, and let you all meet her. And here she is. Hi, Miranda. Hello there. Thank you very much for joining me today. I just did a very brief introduction. I just said about how we originally met on the train many years ago. But the wonderful work that Empathy Lab does. But I wondered if you could just do a brief intro for everyone.
Yes, well, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. Empathy Lab is a small non-profit. We got going on the basis of research, fascinating neuroscience research about what happens when we read in our brains. And basically, in a nutshell, the neuroscientists are saying that reading and identifying with book characters and their feelings builds real life empathy. So we have been on a journey to explore whether society and the education system is making enough of that link, and whether there are interventions that can really spread and build children's empathy skills. So our mission is to raise an empathy educated generation, and to support that generation in leading a new empathy movement, and to do a lot better in building an empathetic world than my generation has managed.
Indeed. And when I think I was actually writing some little children's stories while on my commute when we first met. And so I had a genuine interest in what you're doing, but overall, I think, your journey has been amazing so far, and I'm so pleased to be, a small part of that. And you've got this array of volunteers involved in Empathy Lab. But what I wanted to do today is just explore a bit more, and I've got a few questions just to sort of guide us through. But I want to explore, your focus is obviously children and teaching children empathy through reading. And so you work directly, I know, with authors and libraries and directly with schools as part of that. But how relevant are your teachings to the professional world, do you think?
Oh, I think so relevant. And we've been doing some very interesting work this year with publishers as businesses, which has been a very interesting kind of taste of the relevance of empathy skills and approaches and values in the workplace. And we'll be piloting next year some very interesting training with publishing house staff, very much as kind of business people, as well as obviously the custodians of the books and the authors. So I think what is coming through very clearly to me is how much it resonates with people, that empathy is learnable, and it's a learnable skill at any point in our lives. There's a lot of fascinating research which shows that only 10% of our empathic ability is genetic, and that 98% of us can at any point in our lives learn new empathy skills. So we're not just stuck as adults in our workplaces with a fixed set of empathy skills. And when you think about what a nightmare people are to work with if they can't see anybody else's point of view, and you think about the value of empathy in terms of good relations with your customers, really, really understanding where they're coming from, it's hugely relevant in the workplace. And it's been very interesting to see some leading businesses really talk about empathy very, very explicitly as an approach in the workplace that they're wanting to espouse.
So yeah, it's definitely never too late, but also empathy seems to be a sort of foundation for lots of other skills. It's sort of a soft skill that, I mean, I know you picked it up because it was a soft skill that wasn't necessarily taught in schools, and but it's a foundation for respect. It helps teamwork, collaboration, but leadership skills as well. I think there's a big difference between being a boss and a leader, isn't there?
Yes, that's so interesting. And it's interesting about the sort of different skills involved in being empathetic. And one of the ones we do a lot of work on is listening skills, and really, really understanding where somebody else is coming from, and not always just wanting to leap in with your own point of view. And if you think about the people who are effective in a workplace, they're very often terrific listeners. So we do quite a lot of work around that. And I think the whole leadership debate is absolutely fascinating at the moment about, moving away from a model of leadership as kind of heroic, out there leaders, but leaders who see it as their job to bring out the best in other people and help them thrive. And I absolutely love Simon Sinek on leadership. I think he's very interesting about carving out a whole new agenda for what we see great leaders as being, actually at all levels of business, not just the CEO.
And I think most of us truly believe that we're good at this and that we do have a good understanding and that we do have strong empathy skills, but it's not until you start working through some of the work that you're doing and actually looking at it in a bit more detail that you realize that actually everyone's got something to learn, and it's a sort of continuous improvement, isn't it? It's not a sort of, oh yes, I've learned that now. It's a it's a journey, isn't it?
Hugely. And a lot of the teachers we work with reflect on how it's been a real journey for them. And often the work that we're doing with them in schools feeds into their home lives as well. And I think that in the workplace, there's some very interesting work to be done with employees who are parents, to help them understand that they can play the most enormous role in helping their child develop the empathy skills that they're going to need to thrive in life and to go on to be great employees themselves and great citizens themselves. And so how to choose literature that's going to be great to share with your child, how to talk to your child in a way that will build empathy, how to be an empathy role model. That's a massive, very moving, often, life journey for all of us.
Yeah, so it's, everyone's welcome to the table on this, of all ages. I think it's a good one that spans all ages. But I sit on the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee at Meaden and Moore, and we're bringing your fabulous work on empathy into our toolkit as much as we can. But I think having that sort of some sort of corporate toolkit, particularly for the diversity and inclusion committees, is something that maybe we can continue this work, because I think that would be really useful, because sometimes it's difficult to know. There's a lot of information out there, but this is looking at it from a slightly different point of view, and I think that foundation of empathy is a great way to look at this. So yeah, do you think that, you know, it's something that we'd be able to do in terms of that toolkit for diversity and inclusion?
Yes, we've been doing some future planning, and we're definitely intending to do a workplace toolkit for Empathy Day, which is one of the main planks of our program. Happens every June. I'll maybe explain a bit more in a minute.
Yeah.
Um, but also hugely thinking about how we might start to work with businesses in the round, both in terms of training and workshops, as I say, supporting parents, but also really helping think through the role of empathy in diversity and inclusion in quite a profound way. And that whole thing about our tendency to think so tribally, us humans, and how we really can develop the skill of relating to others who are not the same as us in a really profound way. And I believe that literature has a key role to play in really opening your eyes to how somebody else's life might be very, very different. I think the idea of using books as part of workplace strategies as well could be so creative, so exciting, because storytelling is really important in business, isn't it?
Yeah.
How you tell your story. So I think there are loads of links to that sort of creative strand of our work. Yeah.
And I don't want to draw you too far away from your mission, because it's a fabulous one, of all the work that you're doing with children and authors and schools. And I know it's going extremely well. And you had a fabulous Empathy Day last year, which was obviously the fully virtual one. But Empathy Day is a sort of, just to sort of go back and maybe explain a bit more about that, because it's sort of helped raise a profile of Empathy Lab, but create some focus, hasn't it, for
Yes, very much so. So our 4 areas of work as an organisation are an annual Read for Empathy book collection. So every January we launch an incredibly thorough book collection of 50 books for 4 to 16-year-olds that are used very heavily in schools and libraries. Then we have an in-depth schools programme where we work very closely with senior leadership teams on an empathy education programme. Innovation work with authors, which is so exciting. So lots of different ways of working with authors, spread empathy. And then finally, Empathy Day, which was just a twinkle in our eye in 2017 and has exploded into a massive national event that trends on Twitter. Last year, it trended for 7 hours in the top 3 on Twitter. Even though this is a volunteer-run campaign with no budget, so there's clearly something massive about the message that resonates. So it has 2 main elements to it. The sort of highlight is an online festival, which this year is on June the 10th, where authors lead empathy exercises and really fun things. And the theme this year is walking in someone else's shoes, because of the pandemic and how important that is. And the highlight activity, which I hope some workplaces might be interested in doing, is empathy walks, going out into your local area and walking with empathy in mind, and then deciding what you might do as your empathy resolution to make things better. So the whole day, it's on our website at empathylab.uk, has these brilliant bursts of activity from authors, which can also be used afterwards as well. And then it ends in the evening with a kind of cutting edge cross-disciplinary debate with a leading psychologist and with Michael Rosen and David Baddiel, and a Black author called Catherine Johnson. And we'll be debating the role of empathy in society and in books. So that's the day itself. And then in the run-up, there's masses of activity going on in homes and schools, where they're doing a lot of work around empathy that will be brought to a head on Empathy Day. Very, very exciting work. And there are some new short stories that authors have donated to us, 12 stories that you can use with your children. And for people with families, there's a free family pack, which is an area we'd really love to develop and get sponsorship for, because it can have such an impact in homes.
And I think there's partly the success of Empathy Day, as you said, it is fun. There's lots of activities available. And I know a lot of it's free on the website, but ideally, there are donations, welcomed, obviously, because you're a not-for-profit organisation and all run through volunteers, as you said. But also there are sponsorship opportunities, aren't there?
Yes. And we really would love to find some like-minded partners who really get this, not just give us some cash, which we desperately need, but we want to work with partners who see the value in a major new empathy movement driven in partnership with communities who are responding to this in a very deep way. And our work is really starting to develop a very sound evidence base and an absolutely wonderful network of high-profile supporters and academics. We work very closely with academics at Cambridge and Sussex and the Open University. So the whole thing is very kind of research-led. And we're having a briefing day for potential partners on the 21st of July. So anybody listening to this podcast, it would be fantastic if you were able to see us in action on Empathy Day. Join us for the empathy conversation in the evening, but also then come and talk to us and hear ideas for how we might be able to work together. And we'd really, that's our next step, really, is to develop a relationship with the business community in a really meaningful way.
Well, I mean, it sounds great, and as a minimum, people should just have a look at the website and join in on Empathy Day, because it's the 10th of June, and it's there's some amazing activities. And I know one of your aims is to get as many schools involved as possible, because and I'm speaking to my daughter's school and also other schools in the area to try and get people involved, because there's you provide so much information in the activities. And what we're doing is my daughter's school is trying to raise money for to build a library at the moment, and so we're actually, what I've said is that we're using Empathy Day to help with that, but sharing the donations with Empathy Lab as well. So anything that we get, that's the aim. So yeah, I know you've done seeing things through other people's eyes with the empathy glasses as well in the past. So, and it's walking in other people's shoes this year. But yeah, I'll do, as usual, do whatever I can in the background to try and help. But it's wonderful to be part of this. And I know that you have some fabulous volunteers, and the authors, that the ones that I've met are just brilliant, and the books are great. We've got so many books from the list. But thank you ever so much for joining us today and for exploring this. And have you done a TED Talk? You should do a TED Talk, shouldn't you?
Yes, I should, shouldn't I? I haven't yet. I've been doing lots of podcasts, actually, and on all sorts of things this year. But yeah, we need new allies and new ways of getting them. You're quite right.
But well, this will go out to all my friends on LinkedIn, and I hope that we can work on this sort of toolkit for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, because I think that will be something that's going to be really useful. I know for us, it's just giving some structure to it, and also that the ability for the continuous improvement. But that foundation of empathy is such a strong message. So thank you very much indeed, and I look forward to seeing you in real life soon. I know you're not far up the road, but you definitely wouldn't want to see me today with my germs and my cold. But I look forward to seeing you again soon, and thank you very much, Miranda.
Oh, thank you, Caroline, for all you do.
Thank you.